How do you eliminate self-sabotage? Well, imposter syndrome, self-sabotage shows up in a myriad of ways, right? It comes at you in inconvenient ways, sabotaging your relationships, your money, your business, your career, your health. Well, how do we deal with this? How do we stop the self-sabotage? Well, we have to remember how our brain works. Everything has a good intent. Everything in our body has a good intent. So we have multiple different parts of ourselves, and sometimes a trauma, a wound, a story, a belief can be stored in our body. And it's literally trying to express itself. Like even turning to alcohol, for example, or addiction, is often your body trying to numb something, trying to deal with something, trying to release something that is stuck in you. And it's doing it in an unhealthy or less optimal way, right? But it's there and it's trying to let go. Well, let me talk about trauma for a second, because most self-sabotage is rooted in either a false belief, some sort of trauma, some sort of PTSD, or some sort of energetic imprint that is not helpful and true to your higher level self. In a lot of leaders, you have an unconscious trauma that is sabotaging your intimacy with your spouse, that is sabotaging you choosing the career or the path that you really want, fear of rejection of love, right? So that happens. Then you also have an unconscious trauma or fear around money, where you might make a certain level of money, and right when you get to that income ceiling, you come right back down, because that's your upper limit problem. Gay Hendricks had coined the phrase upper limit problem, as well as a few others, I think. But it's a core issue that we face. So how do you bust through that upper limit? Well, one of the things you want to do is acknowledge, hear, and understand that part of the trauma, because that's what causes it to release. And the challenge we have as humans is we are not designed to release trauma or negative energy naturally. We have to be taught it, and most of us are not taught it. We just are taught whatever our parents experience unconsciously because they weren't taught. Even most therapists and most psychiatrists don't fully know how to release trauma. They're much more attuned than you or I, potentially. But there's a challenge with that. We're still pressing into groundbreaking understanding of trauma and PTSD and how you release those things, right? So think of it like this. In the early 1980s and 1970s, a lot of researchers, especially in trauma, one of them, Peter Levine and others, found a groundbreaking story that helped them understand trauma. It's the story of a polar bear. In its famous National Geographic video, you can see it on YouTube, and I'll probably post a link here. But what you'll see is this polar bear is being chased down by a helicopter. It's being shot with a tranquilizer gun, and they're tagging it, checking the vitals, all that, letting it go, all that jazz. But researchers for years were perplexed with how polar bears would have this frantic energy and movement as the tranquilizer would wear off. They didn't know what was happening. Then one day, a really smart researcher said, hey, let's play this video in slow-mo and see what's happening. Guess what? They noticed that the polar bear was releasing the energy. Its legs were still moving. So it's releasing the energy out of its body from the trauma of being chased down by this flying machine that it's not familiar with. So it's releasing that energy, because the animal kingdom has been designed to release trapped negative energy, different from humans. Another story. My dad did not let us have MTV or cable as a kid. So we had like PBS in the animal stations. Like we watch these animal shows at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night. That was our big like family, let's go watch, the lions on the prairies of Africa. Well, you'd see these lions chase down a wildebeest. And they get this wildebeest and they'd be dragging it back, this big old lion be dragging it back, and it's still alive. And it's in the jaws of the lion. But somehow it shakes out and shimmers out and boom, it's off and running away. And the lion's too tired to chase it. 2 minutes later, that wildebeest is eating grass, literally eating grass. I'm like, freaking A, if I'm in the jaws of a lion, I'm not eating grass 2 minutes later. I'm not eating hamburgers and fries 2 minutes later or pizza. I'm gonna need a little time. That wildebeest knew how to release the energy because it's programmed that way. The challenge for you and I is we're not programmed that way. We get a trauma, we know how to store it in, most likely. That's about what we know. It almost becomes emotionally or energetically constipated in our bodies, and it gets stored, and then we pick up more, then we pick up more, then we pick up more. We can release it though. We can learn how to release it. That's where, even Jesus said, hey, I'm gonna shake off the dust off my feet. I'm gonna brush it off. When he walks into town and he gets rejected, he doesn't hold on to the energy and says, shake it off. And us in the Western world, we don't have good rituals around shaking off the dust. We don't have good rituals around shaking off the trauma, the PTSD, the rejection, the feelings. But that's part of what we got to do. We got to be more emotionally connected, and we got to acknowledge when they show up. When you acknowledge a trauma and anxiety, a fear, a wound, that shows up and you see it, and maybe even give it a name, give it a part, right? I love parts therapy, parts integration. When you acknowledge that part of you, then that part of you feels seen and you can integrate that part into you. And now you can also create space. You can say, hey, weak ass Willie, which is one of mine, go to the back of the bus. You're no longer driving the bus in my life. I want Magic Mike to drive. Magic Mike comes up and he drives. You see that, and now you can lead from that more powerful position. So I'm gonna invite you guys to do that. Invite you to release and acknowledge and see the different parts of yourself that are trying to really, it's a healthy way, they're self-sabotaging, but they're trying to release. So I wanna invite you. You've got elements of ways that self-sabotage shows up. Go ahead and write out all the ways self-sabotage is showing up in your life. Acknowledge it, see it, visualize, close your eyes and meditate and see on each exercise. How is this showing up? What's the good intent? What's the desire? Make sure that part of you feels seen, heard, and understood. Literally close your eyes and say, you know what, I see you, I hear you, I love you, I appreciate you. Give that version of you a hug and then ask that version of you to release, to let go. Then what does it creates parts integration. I took another client. She was an author of 80 plus books at the time, but she had two parts of herself. The part of herself that was an artist and part of herself that was an entrepreneur. They were at war with each other for 2 years, to the point she was ready to burn the business down, even though it was providing an incredible lifestyle for her and her husband. And she had shifted away from writing her own books to having a ghostwriter. And the challenge with that was her artist side say, you're a fraud, you're a fake, you're not writing your own books. The entrepreneur side said, hey, you're providing all these jobs, you're providing great living, you're doing what you're supposed to do. You were bored writing the books anyhow. So they were at war. Boom, boom, butting heads. Parts, different parts of herself. We do one session, the next day, literally the next day, integrated, connected, and then been integrated and connected for the next 3 years. It's 3 years later. She's still connected and integrated. That's available for you too. Pay attention to those parts that are activating and seeking to cause the self-sabotage. No, it's not their intent. Actually have a good intent. They're trying to get healed. They're trying to get released. They're trying to get transformed. And you have the capacity, my friend, to release them. So hope that's helpful. Subscribe, grab my guides down below, wealth consciousness and so much more. 6 steps to find your deepest area of genius, and I'll see you on the next video.